So hands down, some of my favorite beats come from producers like Just Blaze and Jake One. And one of my favorite things about their sound is how they incorporate soulful gospel samples into a lot of their music. So today, I'm gonna show you how to make your own samples with that sound without using too many crazy secret plugins. So since we're making a more old school sounding gospel sample, it wouldn't be right if we started with anything other than an organ. So if you've ever watched any of my sample making tutorials in the past, then you know that I'm always talking about using automation to make your sample sound better. So for this sample, if you look at what I'm doing here, I'm using some automation on the mod wheel in order to mess with the rotary speed. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want it to sound natural. And if you're like me and you grew up in a church with an organ, then you know that the organ players used to mess with the rotary speed in order to change the sound of the organ while they were playing. And for this organ sound, I went with the B3 from Arturia, and I actually didn't even put any effects on it. It just sounded good all by itself. Now, next up, we have 3 choir sections. The first 2 are actually playing just the chords and backing up the organ. And then the third one is doing something a little different. I bet you want to know what I used to do that. Like you just heard, and like I said before, I'm actually using 2 choirs to back up the organ. Now the first choir comes straight out of Omnisphere. I'm using the gospel choir. And then the second choir, believe it or not, I'm using the basic stock gospel ensemble choir that comes with the old ESX24 in Logic. And then for the ad-libs, I'm using 2 more ESX24s, just stock sounds that come with Logic. Now granted, I know a lot of you may not have Logic. Some of y'all might be using Ableton, some of y'all might be using FL Studio. But one of the things that I hope that you can take away from this tutorial, if nothing else, is even if you're trying to make something that's a little bit more complex, a lot of the times, if you just dig into the tools that you already have at your disposal, you'll see that you already have everything that you need in order to make something that sounds really good. You don't really need any kind of special organ plugin to do the automation or the modulations for it. Most of the organ plugins and sound libraries for organs that I've ever used, they all do the exact same thing. And while we're on that, I'm gonna do something weird, which is I'm gonna make a prediction about you. Now, if I had to guess, I'd say you really like making music. If I had to make another guess, I'd say you really like making music with really dope sounds. In fact, you're probably even more into dope sounds that can help you get a placement from someone who actually gets placements. But here's where it gets weird, because I definitely know that you wouldn't want any of that type of stuff for free. And listen, I'm definitely not in the business of trying to convince people to do things that they don't want to do. All I'm saying is that if you were interested in that for the low price of absolutely none of your money, you could get a hand-picked sample pack of 13 of my favorite sample drops. Not to mention a few that I haven't even put out yet. And did I say that that also comes with a free drum kit? Now, if that was something you'd be interested in, then this would be the point where I'd be like all the other YouTubers and say, hey, check out the link in the description if you want that. But who we kidding? That's not something you would want. I don't even know why I brought it up. Let's get back to the video. So next up, I have a piano section where I'm actually using 2 different pianos. Now for both of these pianos, I'm using addictive keys. On one of them, I'm using the grandeur, and then the other one, I'm using the Indie Preacher preset. And then for both of them, I am actually using an instance of RC20. I'm using the Vinyl 2 preset. I don't really think that I did too much other than bring down the noise. And I really just did that because I wanted them to sound like they were recorded onto a tape. And believe it or not, we're actually almost done. So for the next sound, I'm using a ride. For that one, I'm basically using the Addictive Drums plugin, and I really just added that to add a little bit more rhythm to the sample. And then the last instrument that I added is a bass line. And for the plugin that I use for that, it's nothing too crazy. It's just a Scarby pre-bass and no effects on it. And then finally, once you put everything together, here's what it sounds like. That's how you can make your own classic gospel soul style composition. And if you want to learn how to make a sample that's so good that even one of the biggest independent artists in the world is going to take notice, check out this video right here.